here in the middle of Comet Ison, in the middle of a great big field. I should say that it's not really Comet Ison, it's the magnetic image of Comet Ison. And I'm standing in the granite core where we've got various structures, including where the mining crews take their rest period. So there are cavities in the granite core, 3 of them we have discovered, where we think the mining crews come for rest and recuperation. Now, just to link you up with the previous films, I'm just going to set the scene again by saying that the comet consists of this granite core, and then outside there's this layer of what I often refer to as the mushy layer, but it's not really mushy. Remember that when water is frozen at minus 100 odd degrees, it's as hard as rock. So it's quite easy for them to secure things to the what I call the mushy area. Now outside of that, if you remember, we have an area where the sun is evaporating the gases and the water, picking up the dusts, and they're being ejected from the front. And as it happens, I'm standing at the front of the comet with the sun off in that direction. And all the gases and the dusts are now being jetted out to form the beginnings of the tail. And we'll come and look at the tail, which is now becoming very impressive. But we do have an engineering problem, or at least the Gilfs have an engineering problem. They have got to keep this front of the comet facing the sun. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is if they've got some pretty big engineering works and girder systems with engines which are able to maneuver the comet around as it goes around the sun. And what we've got here with the green tapes there and the green tapes over here is the beginning of a girder system which goes out through the cloaking layer. This is the cloaking layer to disguise the comet so that inquisitive people like us and our astronomers can't really see what's going on. So the gases come out, the engineering continues, these girders and everything, and they go out a significant distance from the comet so that they've got plenty of leverage. It's like having a lever, and the engine is at this end, and the engine is going to easily move things around like that. And this is the engine sector. It's got its fuel out by the engine, so this is where the fuel is stored. That's the beryllium nitrate and the ammonia. This is the maser engine, and these are the 3 broken rings of iridium around the maser which help to enable it develop its enormous magnetic potential. And then the beryllium and ammonia nitrate shot out at very high speed, and that exerts a torque on the comet. And of course there's another one at the other end which will be doing the same, so they'll be working together. Now, to fine-tune the direction of thrust, the engines are rotatable, and there is a disc which enables the engine to be moved around a bit. So here we are out at one end with an engine. If we now sort of go back, because we're looking primarily at the engineering that's being used, and the next thing I want to draw your attention to is the one that controls the rotation. And we believe that there are in fact 4 of these engines, and I'm just going to show you one of them. Now I'm standing by one of the engines that controls the sort of rotation of the Comet, and we believe that there are 4 of these. There's one along this axis at this end, there'll be one at the other side, and then we think there's 2 along a vertical axis with one engine up here and one engine down there, and they sort of operate by stopping any rotation of the Comet like that. So again, it's the same sort of picture: an engine which has got an ability to rotate, its fuel supply, and then the girder system which anchors it to the Comet and exerts the pressures, if you like, on the Comet to control its rotation. Now this one, we actually are passing one of the mining ships, and if you remember, we did a little bit on the mining ship and its structure. So this is one of the ships here, and it's inside the cloaking layer actually, or it looks as if it is. It may be sort of vertically, but outside it due to the curve of the cloaking layer. Then this is the mushy layer, and the actual mine itself is actually in the granite, and so it's mining something here, and we are not too sure what this one is. It's going to be either the silicon or the aluminium one, and in point of fact it could be the aluminium one. Right, so we've now seen how they actually control the Comet, how they swing it round to face the sun, how they stop it spinning, and the next thing we want to look at is in fact the magnetics, the magnetic fields that they use for controlling the materials that the Comet is made of. Now these guys use magnetic fields to control many things, including the material which is being ejected out of the front of the Comet. This material, the dusts and the gases and everything, are going to make up the tail, going to make up that very bright image which people will be looking at with their binoculars, and the image the astronomers will be studying with their telescopes. And what is happening is that a certain amount of sunlight is allowed to come through to evaporate the water, carbon dioxide and everything from the Comet, and then that is collected by a magnetic field system. This is where the magnetic cables are, and they're running as a sort of a funnel to funnel in the material, and then the magnetic field comes either side of the aluminium tube and everything is ejected then out of the cloaking layer and the aluminium shield. It's all jetted out, and then it sort of curves around and forms the beginnings of the tail. So when you look at the head of the Comet, this is the bit that you're going to see on the outside, and that now all these gases are going to flow around and will eventually meet at the far end and form the tail. But before we get there, what I want to do is to introduce you to the source of these magnetic fields, what we call their field generators. Now, their field generators look a bit like an oil tank, if you like, big oil tank. But they're engineered to produce the type of magnetic field that they want. So if they want a magnetic field to control water, xenon, carbon dioxide, then this is where it is produced in this what we call the field generator. And the magnetic fields are then fed along a magnetic cable, In this case, the generator is up near the front of the comet, and the field is fed along this cable to the other end of the comet where it is going to be used. And if I just walk along to the end of the comet, you'll see that the cable is following in the space, and this is just to remind you what I said in a previous film, that this area here hasn't got anything in it. It's a vacuum. That is the cloaking layer, that is your aluminium layer protecting the comet from the solar radiation, and then outside it is the tail, which is material which is again protecting the comet from the solar radiation. And we follow it down, and it actually comes to a sort of terminal here, and we haven't shown it, but there is another magnetic rope going off in that direction. The one we're interested in is the one which is going to go down and will help to form the tail of the comet. And so we can follow the magnetic rope along here to this bottom bit, and round about this point it loses its bismuth vanillate insulation layer, and it becomes a pure magnetic rope. In other words, the magnetic field is now allowed to escape, and that's protecting on the material which is going to form the tail. And if we just look across at the tail, we can see what is happening to the material. The tail is indicated by the green tape here, and it comes down and then is being pushed out, and the magnetic field and they're controlling it, and we get this kink here, which is an unusual feature, and it may be the astronomers are going to be able to explain to us exactly how it's formed. But we have that kink, and my recollection is that I've seen it in ancient pictures of comets as well. And then the gases and everything start expanding out, and then the pressure from the solar radiation starts to dominate and pushes everything in a line off into the distance, and it's that bit of the tail which most people and that's what they will be seeing in their binoculars and their telescopes. Now, having dealt with the formation of the tail, I just want to go back to our magnetic rope again. And at this point, we can actually follow the magnetic rope across the comet. And so we have in fact a ring. We can demonstrate that around the comet there's this magnetic ring which is forming or helping to form the shape of the tail. And that means that these guys go to an awful lot of trouble to make sure that this comet, in spite of the fact they've got ships mining it as fast as they can go, and they're sticking to that mining program by the look of it as they go around the sun. Now, subsequently